Our next guests are not Army generals or Homeland Security experts, but there are few people in the world who know more about terrorism than these men. Each of them took part in acts of violence against Jews in the West, but eventually turned their lives around and now advocate for peace. They join us now to give you a rare opportunity to go inside the mind of a terrorist and see what motivates them. Walid Shobat, Zach Anani, and Ibrahim Abdallah join us now to talk more about the mindset of terrorism, and if there's any way that we can protect ourselves. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, Walid, I'd like to start with you. You're born in a family of prominence in Bethlehem. Then you joined the PLO, and you took part in an act of terrorism to try and bomb a bank in Israel. Tell us about that moment, what it was like, and what turned you around, what prevented you from detonating the bomb.
The bomb was detonated. I was not prevented from detonating the bomb. I saw some Arab children walking around Bank Leumi Israel in Bethlehem, and I decided I didn't want to kill Arab children, so I lodged the bomb on the roof and it exploded. But what was going on at this time was the idea of destroying every infrastructure that is Israeli or Jewish in the West Bank, and there was one bank in the West Bank in Bethlehem, so I aimed to destroy it as I was recruited by a notorious bomb maker in Jerusalem.
But let me ask you this question. You're born to a prominent family in Bethlehem. Why join the PLO? I mean, you're part of a privileged family. Why join this organization?
Well, my grandfather was good friends with Hajj Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. He was called the Führer of the Muslim world. This is no small cookie. This is a big, huge guy, and it's important. And it's not like you join a terror organization. People don't understand in the West. They think that it's like the Unabomber, you know, what goes on in the mind of a terrorist. It's the collective incitement of millions of children in school, in the social arena, in clubs, in the mosque, on the Temple Mount, in the streets, on the graffiti.
Are you saying it's part of the culture? You're saying it's part of the upbringing of the children of Palestine, the children of Iraq right now?
Absolutely. When I was 6 years old, I go to school just before the 6 Day War. We sing Arabs are beloved and Jews are dogs. So you can see it's not just in the Palestinian areas. It's in Jordan, it's in Lebanon, it's in Cairo, it's in Syria, it's all over.
It's all over. And which brings me to, I want to ask Ibrahim Abdallah this question. You were born here in the United States, in Dearborn, Michigan, where there is a large Arab population in that part of the country. Is what Walid was saying, what was happening in his homeland, similar to what you were hearing happening in Dearborn? Was there feeling that among that community, a hatred among the Muslim population for what was happening in the West, and a willingness to maybe retaliate if possible?
Well, sure, absolutely. I was born in Dearborn, Michigan, but Dearborn, Michigan, as you stated, is one of the largest Muslim populations in the country, and it's just like having a village in the West Bank in Israel today. It's very, very similar. As a matter of fact, there are storefronts and businesses with Arabic writing on them, and 99.9% of the people who live there are Muslim, Arab Muslims predominantly.
And is there an effort to try and, say, cultivate young Arabs here in the United States to think about joining Al-Qaeda, for example, forming their own sort of splinter cells of terrorism, like what happened in London?
Well, there's no question about it. I mean, we've seen what the government has done recently in doing interviews with various people, rounding up various organizations, indicting organizations who are funding some of these terrorist organizations all over the country. And usually, if you watch and follow the newscast even, you'll find that they start in Dearborn, Detroit, because that is the home base of many of these organizations. And there's much funding going on. As far as cultivating the mentality of the children, that's absolutely truthful. I mean, it is just like it is in the West Bank, and not just the West Bank, throughout the Middle East and the Muslim world as a whole.
So what you're saying then, Ibrahim, is that right here in our country, as we are speaking to viewers living here in the United States, you're saying that there are cells of terrorism, of young men being cultivated right in our borders.
Right, but what I'm trying to explain to you is that it's not an obscure thing that just started happening. This is part of the culture. You're born and raised with this hatred in your mind and in your heart. I mean, for America and Israel, primarily the Jew and Christian, and that is what the target is. And you're born and bred to believe this.
Zach, let me ask you a question. You were part of a notorious gang in Lebanon during the Civil War. And now you've decided to abandon that, even after attacking your own Arabs and hatred for the West. Why speak out now? Why be brave enough to say that this is wrong, what we have been taught, what we were taught, this was wrong?
Well, it's not just now. It's been doing it for the past 17 years of my life, even a little bit more. Because we, as people who have seen the light and the truth, we seek to reveal the truth and reveal the real mind of wrong terrorism.
So, but let me ask you this question. You're speaking out. Other Muslim leaders are speaking out. They're attacking this radical Islamic thought. But why isn't it catching on? Why are still more and more young men deciding that don't believe what you say?
Well, my friend, you have to understand, first of all, what you see here in the West really is the beautified Islam, which is not really the Orthodox Islam. And people who are raised, like in my youth, raised on Orthodox Islam, they don't have a clue, or they don't have a chance of changing their life if it's not changed within.
All right. I want to go back now to Walid. Let me ask you about now the September 11th attacks. Many people in this country very jittery, very nervous about the possibility of it happening again. What do you tell the world? What do you tell our elected officials? Are we still at risk? And if it happens, will it happen here in the United States from people that are born in the United States, grown here, went to school here?
I mean, just look at what happened in London. They're homegrown terrorists as well. There's al-Muhajirun in London. As a matter of fact, if I just can give you an example, we started in 1981. We would rent hotels, and we would be training underground as well, in basements. Our mentor was named Jamal Saeed. It is said that Jamal Saeed, he has a mosque in Chicago. He's free right now. As a matter of fact, it is said that he is an associate of Abdullah Azzam, the mentor of Osama bin Laden. This is huge. And if I have home videos, if I show them to your viewers, what they used to do, they used to bring terrorist recruiting from the Palestinian areas. They bring reports open in school areas, in the public, giving names who they killed, where they ditched the bodies, what the plans are, collecting millions of dollars for recruitment of terrorism here. This was in 1981. I mean, this was going on for 20-some years. And now it's happening. Now you don't know what hit you. It's been going on for a long, long time. September 11th, the desire to destroy the Twin Towers was a long time ago.
Ibrahim, let me ask you this question. Are you surprised that you have not heard, Ibrahim, are you surprised that we have not had an attack here in the United States from a terrorist cell, a young man born in the United States, educated in the United States, attacking our own country with, say, a dirty bomb, or trained in some of the ways that Walid just mentioned?
Well, I'm not surprised in a certain way. What I'm trying to say, and maybe the better way to answer that, is these plans are always cultivated, always. And like Walid said, it hasn't just started recently. This has been going on for years and years and years. And the mentality with this group of people, if you want to call them a group of people, with the Muslim general population, the people themselves are not the ones that are hatching these. What you have are the Muslim leaders in some of these countries, terrorist organizations who are mobilizing youth, corrupting their minds, raising money, organizing cells, organizations, gathering them together, plotting against the United States and Israel simultaneously. Anyone who would stop Islam from spreading around the world, or anything to destroy America and Israel in any which way. So how could I be surprised? I mean, it's always being planned, but America now has tightened security. Right now they use America as a base to gather and raise millions and millions of dollars to funnel into various organizations. And I'm sure you've heard of the multiple ongoing cases there are today with...
Zach, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a question. We just turned the subject now about what can be done. The president has said, let's take it to the terrorists. Let's take it to the front line. The front line in the war on terrorism is Iraq. Is that the answer, Zach?
Yes, I believe that what Mr. Bush have done is the right way, although I believe within myself that he is too lean a little bit. He should have been more aggressive, and they should have finished the job a long time ago.
You have to understand, terrorists do things for a reason. If they put a bombing in Spain and they get the positive reaction they want, then it's going to increase. What happened after September 11, America hit them and hit them hard. and they know now there's repercussions. It won't work out for them. If they do more terrorism attack here, it's going to be worse for them. That's why it's concentrated in Iraq. That's why Bush is right. You take the war on their turf, not on our turf.
Ibrahim, there was once a famous a scholar out of the Midwest said that if you come at me with a gun, I'll come at you with a knife. If you come at with me a knife, I'll come at you with a bomb. The cycle continues. What does this country have to do to try and protect itself best from terrorists? Do we have to go to the Middle East and try and convince the minds of the leaders and especially the youth that we're not the enemy?
Well, of course. I mean, that's education is always part of it, but as much as a lot of people do not want to talk about it or hear about it, we do need to be aggressive. That is the only, you see, the mentality of the culture that we're discussing here understands retaliation, understands, in other words, if we retaliate and then they know that there are ramifications for their actions, then they would be much less, prompting them to attack the United States and Israel. For instance, Israel has a reputation for revenge, reputation for retaliating in a harsh way. And so, yes, we hear about multiple attacks in Israel, but every day that goes by, you don't hear about the hundreds and hundreds that are stopped.
Well, let me ask you this question. We have a huge military force right now in Iraq, arresting and when needed, using force against Al-Qaeda there, and it doesn't seem to be stopping the attacks. There are tens and dozens of people killed every single day by roadside bombs.
I mean, listen, Churchill said it right regarding Nazi Germany. This system, it's like Nazism, is the same way. You treat it the same way. When we were giving concessions to Hitler in the Munich Accord, nobody liked what Churchill said. He says we've been given a choice between shame and between war. Shame, that is, kowtowing to it, and between war, taking them out right now. We have chosen shame, and we'll end up in war. We can choose other direction. We can get out of Iraq. We can create a Palestinian state.
So you're comparing radical Islam to Nazi Germany. That's what you want our viewers to make that comparison?
Well, there is no respect for borders. The end justifies the means. This is the same dogma as you have in extremist communist movements, and the Nazi movements is the same thing. It hasn't changed. It's a theocracy. It's an autocracy. It is not a democratic system. You never had a democratic system in any of the 55 Muslim countries. It is difficult to establish democracy unless you have strength in that land.
Let me ask you this question, you three gentlemen. I mean, how's your response? How's been the response to your thoughts, your philosophies, and the message you're sharing with the public among Muslims here in the United States and among Muslims back at home?
Well, first of all, the majority of the Muslims do support radical organizations. For instance, you can look at poll after poll after poll, and unfortunately, the majority of them do support people like Osama bin Laden. They support Hamas. They support Hezbollah. I would say anywhere from 60 to 75%, depending on the country. Nevertheless, that's what you're dealing with.
So what you're saying is that when you go to other Muslims, you're sitting in the cafe, you're having a drink, you're having a cup of coffee, and you say, look, I think Bush is right to go into the Middle East and hit him hard. And radical Islam is similar to Nazism. These people are crazy. They're ruining our youth. Well, what are they saying to you? Are they saying, look, we agree with you, or are they saying, get away?
There's something in your question. We can't go to a cafe where there's Middle Easterners and Muslims and all these things. If we can give you the rap sheet of what happens to us, if we'd go there, you won't believe it. If I can quote you the threats that happened to Zach and Abraham and myself.
Your lives have been threatened. That's what you're telling us.
Let me give you an answer for that, please, because me, as an evangelist in the streets, and I've been speaking about this subject at least 17 years old, 17 years ago, as you said, in the coffee shops and the streets. The last thing happened, my friend, the very last thing is an attack on me in the street, and they burned my car, and they tried to burn my house.
So what you're saying?
And I had to change my phone twice so far. Someone even rushed after my daughters in the street and switched a knife against them.
All right. So, gentlemen, why speak out? Why speak out? Walid, you're in the middle?
This is the only nation that we can live in. I mean, America, the Western countries, this is the future of our children. It is the only hope that we have. Where am I going to live? Am I going to live in London? Am I going to live in France? You tell me, where am I going to live? America is the only place that we can live, people with conscientious objection. I can't go to the streets of Ramallah and carry a poster that says, I condemn suicide bombing. I'll be lynched within seconds. The Americans have no concept of what's happening in the Middle East. They look at the media. They don't understand what's happening. You can't go to a bus stop in Cairo or Syria or Damascus and say, and put a kippah on your head and say, I'm Jewish. Or say, I'm against terrorism. As a matter of fact, look at one country like Jordan. It's considered a moderate country in America. In a poll, 61% of Jordanians support Osama bin Laden. This is huge. And if you look after the bombing in Jordan, what were they saying on television? They were saying, after what Zarqawi did, now we don't support him anymore. Which means if he only killed Americans, it would have been okay. Now that he's killing Arabs, that's when the buck stops. That's when the buck ends.
Waleed Shobat, Ibrahim Abdullah, Zach Anani. We want to thank you gentlemen very much for sharing this time with us.
Thank you.
Anytime.